Here's the paradox that'll mess with your mind. The moment you stop needing her is the exact moment she cannot stop thinking about you. The woman who pushed you away, who seemed perfectly fine with distance, suddenly can't handle your absence. But here's what's strange. The reason has nothing to do with love. It's something far more primal. And when you understand it, her entire pattern of behavior will finally make sense. If you've ever been involved with a dismissive, avoidant woman, you know exactly what I'm talking about. She's independent, self-sufficient, maybe even a little cold. She kept you at arm's length, made you feel like you were always the one who cared more, always the one chasing. And then one day you stopped. You detached. You moved on. You genuinely let go. And that's when everything flipped. Suddenly she's reaching out, checking your social media, asking mutual friends about you. The woman who seemed completely immune to emotional need is now showing signs of something that looks a lot like panic. Now, most people think they know why this happens. They'll tell you she finally realized what she lost. But that explanation is completely wrong. And it actually misses the real psychology of what's happening inside her mind. Because here's the first thing you need to understand. She's not reacting to losing you. She's reacting to losing something far more important to her than the relationship itself. Let me explain what I mean. A dismissive, avoidant woman has built her entire identity on one core belief. I don't need anyone. This isn't just a preference. It's a survival strategy she developed, usually in childhood, when she learned that emotional needs are dangerous. Maybe vulnerability was punished. Maybe depending on others led to disappointment. So she constructed a defensive system, complete self-reliance. When you were pursuing her, the system worked perfectly. You wanted closeness. She controlled the distance. You had needs. She stayed above them. The entire dynamic confirmed what she believed about herself, that she was the independent one, the one who doesn't need, the one in control. But then you changed something she never prepared for. You stopped wanting her more than she wanted you. And here's the reward I promise you. Here's what makes this so powerful. When you genuinely detach, you're not just ending a relationship. You're removing the one thing that allowed her to maintain her identity. Because dismissive avoidants don't just prefer distance. They actually need someone to push away. They need you to want them more than they want you. Without you playing that role, the entire system collapses. But that's just the beginning of what your detachment does to her. Because it gets much worse. And the reason why reveals something she's been hiding from herself for years. Let me show you what happens in her psychology the moment you pull away. The first thing that hits her is the loss of control. Dismissive avoidants are specialists at controlling relationship dynamics. They control the pace, the depth, the intimacy level. It's how they stay safe. But your detachment removes that control instantly. She can't keep you at the perfect distance if you're not trying to get closer. This creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Her reality no longer matches her mental model. The relationship was supposed to work a certain way. She was supposed to be in control of the distance while you pursued. Now that entire script is broken. But here's what's interesting. Cognitive dissonance is deeply uncomfortable for the human brain. When reality doesn't match our beliefs, our mind desperately tries to resolve it. And for her, there are only two ways to resolve it. She can change her belief about herself, admit that maybe she does need connection, or she can change reality, get you to start pursuing again. Guess which one she's going to try first? That's why you suddenly see the breadcrumbing, the little texts, just thinking about you. How have you been? She's not reaching out because she wants real connection. She's testing to see if you're still available to play your old role. If she can restore the dynamic where you need her more than she needs you, she might suddenly remember all the good times. Her brain, trying to resolve the dissonance, starts cherry-picking memories. The relationship that felt suffocating last month is now special and misunderstood, not because her feelings changed, but because the dynamic changed. Some dismissive avoidants show up in your orbit more. Suddenly she's at places you frequent, liking old photos, asking mutual friends about you. She's not consciously chasing. That would violate everything she believes about herself. But she's definitely not maintaining the distance she once insisted on. And here's the pattern you need to watch for. All of these behaviors are attempts to restore control, without admitting she lost it. But we still haven't gotten to the deeper reason why she can't handle your detachment. And this is where it escalates into something she can't manage with her usual strategies. Because your detachment doesn't just threaten her control. It threatens something far more fundamental. It threatens her entire self-concept. Think about it. Her whole identity is built on being the one who doesn't need, the one who's fine alone, the one who's above emotional dependency. But your detachment forces a question she spent her whole life avoiding. If I'm so fine alone, why does this bother me? She can't dismiss you as too needy anymore. She can't feel superior in her independence. You've taken away the mirror that reflected back the image she needed to see of herself. And without you playing a role of the pursuer, she has to confront something deeply uncomfortable. Maybe she wasn't as indifferent as she believed. Now here's where some dismissive avoidants do something that seems completely contradictory, and it reveals just how threatened they feel. They get angry. They can't process the vulnerability of, I miss you, so it comes out as accusations. You've changed. You're being cold. You're acting different. Notice what's happening here. They're framing your detachment as a character flaw in you rather than examining their own response to it. Others go into what looks like protest behavior. They start dating someone new very publicly, posting about how happy they are, how they've never been better. But this isn't about the new person. It's about managing the anxiety your detachment triggered. It's a desperate attempt to prove to herself and to you that she really doesn't need you. But here's a reward for staying with me this far. All of these behaviors, the breadcrumbing, the anger, the protest dating, the sudden nostalgia, they're all symptoms of the same problem. They're all signs that something inside her defensive system has been activated, something she's been running from her entire life. And what that something is will explain everything. Because we still haven't answered the biggest question. Why does your absence affect her more than your presence ever did? And the answer reveals the one thing she's been hiding from herself. Ready for this? Despite all her defenses, despite all her independence, despite all her self-sufficiency, she has the exact same fundamental need for connection that every human has. She just buried it deeper, way, way deeper. And here's what most people miss. When you were pursuing her, she could avoid feeling that need. She could stay in control. She could keep you close enough to feel wanted, but far enough to feel safe. Your pursuit allowed her to have connection without acknowledging she needed it. But when you detach, you remove that option completely. And your detachment doesn't feel like freedom to her unconscious mind. It feels like the one thing her entire defensive system was built to prevent. Abandonment. This is the part where it all clicks together. This is why she can't handle it. Because you're not just leaving the relationship. You're activating the core wound she's been running from since childhood. The wound that told her emotional needs are dangerous. That depending on others leads to pain. That she's only safe when she doesn't need anyone. When you were pursuing, she could avoid that wound. But when you detach, it gets triggered with full force. And here's the escalation that makes it even worse for her. She can't use her normal strategies to manage it. Usually, when a dismissive avoidant feels uncomfortable in a relationship, she has a simple solution. Create distance. Pull away. Regain control. Problem solved. But you've already created the distance. You've already pulled away. Her usual escape route is blocked. So now she's stuck with feelings she has absolutely no idea how to process. She's experiencing emotional need, the one thing she built her entire personality to avoid, and she can't escape it by distancing, because you've already done the distancing. She's trapped with her own vulnerability. And there's one final layer that makes this psychologically intolerable for her. When you were available, when you were pursuing, she had abundance. She could take you or leave you. The power was entirely hers. But now you're scarce. You're unavailable. You're the one who's moved on. And human psychology has a fundamental rule. We want what we can't have. For a dismissive avoidant who spent the entire relationship having all the power, this reversal is devastating. She's gone from abundance to scarcity, from control to no control, from the one who doesn't need to the one who's bothered by your absence. Everything her identity was built on has been completely inverted. And now we arrive at the climax, the full answer to why she can't handle your detachment. Your detachment does something her defensive system cannot tolerate. It makes her feel. It strips away her control. It shatters her self-concept. It activates her deepest wound. It reverses the power dynamic. And worst of all, it forces her to confront the very emotions she spent her entire life avoiding. She has to feel her need for you. She has to acknowledge that being wanted actually mattered. She has to sit with the uncomfortable truth that connection meant more than she ever admitted to herself or to you. This is terrifying for a dismissive avoidant, because handling these feelings will require her to dismantle her entire defensive structure. It would mean admitting that she's not above emotional need, that independence didn't actually make her immune to loss, that all those times she pulled away, she wasn't protecting herself from you. She was running from something inside herself. That's the complete psychology of why she can't handle it when you detach. Your presence let her hide from herself. Your absence forces her to feel. And for someone who's built their entire life around not feeling, that's the one thing she has no strategy for. The paradox is real. The moment you stop needing her, she can't stop thinking about you. Not because you become more attractive, but because you stop playing a role that allowed her to avoid the most vulnerable parts of herself. So what does this mean for you? If you're watching this because you're trying to get her back, understand this. Her reaction to your detachment doesn't mean she's suddenly ready for a healthy relationship. It means her defense mechanisms are in full panic mode. Those are completely different things. Real change in a dismissive avoidant requires deep self-awareness, therapy, and a willingness to sit with uncomfortable emotions instead of running from them. Her reaching out because she can't handle your absence isn't growth. It's an attempt to restore the dynamic where she felt safe and you needed her more. If you're watching this to understand what happened, know that her inability to handle your detachment was never about you. It's about her relationship with herself, with vulnerability, with wounds she's been carrying since long before you entered her life. And if you're watching this because you're in the process of detaching, expect her to notice. Expect some kind of reaction. But understand that managing her emotions isn't your responsibility. Staying in a dynamic that diminishes you just to help her feel safe isn't love. It's self-abandonment. The paradox is powerful, and now you understand exactly why it works. Your absence affects her more than your presence because it removes the one thing she needed most, someone to push away so she could keep hiding from herself.